Thank you all so much for being tuned in tonight. Tonight, I got an awesome show tonight. I got an awesome discussion that's going to be taking place tonight. I got some special guests with me on tonight, and they are ready to talk about this important topic. I think that once we are done and finished with this discussion, you will be enlightened, you will be edified. And I got some great men and women of God that I respect dearly. And so we're going to go ahead and get started with the discussion very soon. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Elder Tamel Brown of Fruit Bear Ministries. I am an elder in the Church of God in Christ. I'm also a singer, songwriter. So get ready for some more music coming this year. Also, I have a new book that will be coming out in the next few months. It's called How to Get Over a Breakup. And you'll see that in just a moment as we go through this discussion. I'll go ahead and put that up as well. But I'm also the founder of Single Saved But No Kids. Right now, because I have joined the covenant of marriage, I am no longer leading that group. I have Jared Bogarty and Elder Fearfully Made Holman. They are doing a great job of running the group for me. And also Gabe Abram, Kalisha Wiggins, and also Brian Thomas. They are part of the SS&K admin team. And so they are now heading SS&K for me. You guys are doing a wonderful job, and I just wanted to let you know on this broadcast, I appreciate you guys. All right, so we're going to go from the bottom to the top. And I'm going to allow my guests to introduce themselves, starting with Miss Drea Amore.
Hi, I am Andrea Enoch. I run a singles ministry group on Facebook called Singles Ministry United for Christ. I reside in Cincinnati, Ohio. I also wrote a book too, just like Tamara
Awesome.
Brown. It's a poetry book titled Taking the Rose-Colored Glasses Off. It covers the span of 20 years of like my life, other people's life, and it also includes fictional stories in there. But I'm happy to be here tonight, and I'm glad to be working with the other hostesses. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Awesome. I guess I'll jump right in. Hey, everybody. I'm Brandy Iberia. I'm the founder of Single Talk. I met Tamel being a part of his group, Single Save with No Kids. And I've said this before, but I would love to say it publicly. Congratulations, Tamel. I see the photos, I see the love, and I'm here for all of it. Oh, my goodness.
Thank you.
But yeah, so like I said, founder of Single Talk, which is a Facebook group as well. We do some things in the city of Milwaukee. Sometimes when we come together outside of the online experience, if you will. And then and Andrea and Tamel, I also am an author, the author of 365 Days of Loving You, which is a self-love guide. And it's an amazing book that I wrote a couple years ago and still going strong. I do a slew of other things, but I'm here just to talk about the topic today. Excited to get into it. I've seen these other folks online, so you guys are definitely in for a treat. Glad to be here.
Beautiful.
And my name is Jared Bogarty. I'm also an admin for Single Saved with No Kids. I also have a YouTube channel called Lost in Translation Podcast. I'm just not getting that bad boy started, so everything is going good right now. And I'm a moderator for a lot of different YouTube channels and a lot of other chat rooms. So we've been having these discussions all over the internet. So it's been years in the making. So hopefully what we bring today is something that's new and fresh and something that you can use along the way. And also Tamel is has blessed us with being admins for a Single Saved with No Kids. We have fun in there all the time, all type of enlightened conversation and things that make you think. So thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, beautiful. And so thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you on, Miss Drea. More pleasure, Brandy, to have you on. As always, a pleasure to have you guys on. A pleasure to have you on, Jared. And also, Pastor Gregory Devine, he will be joining us in a few minutes as well. And so we're going to go ahead and get the conversation started to spark some dialogue with this question. Anybody can jump in. It's no particular order. So to start things off, I want to ask you ladies and gentlemen, this question. The question is, have you ever experienced romantic rejection? And if so, how did you handle it?
Terribly. No. No. I'll jump in and then guys chime in kind of, as we go, even if there's something that kind of sparks it, before I finish, because I'm definitely a conversationalist. And I was thinking about this because you did send us some of the questions to kind of ponder. And I've never really been a big person to just, especially growing up kind of old school. It really wasn't a taught, if you will, for me just to be the person that was asking the guy out or that type of thing. But what I have experienced, although I wasn't taught to ask the guy out, I was taught to at least present yourself in a way where, you do seem like you're interested, right? So I've done that before, where, if they say, well, I'm looking for someone to help out, because I'm a church girl, help out after church. Okay, I'm gonna wave my hand. Somebody can be on this committee. Okay, I'm gonna make sure that I'm a part. Or just again, if they ask the question, giving a very clear answer. Long story short, what I've experienced is where it starts as though the person is interested, or it seems as though because their activities and their actions say I'm interested, and maybe they have not specifically said, hey, I want to, pursue something with you, but the actions may be they're calling me. And maybe they're calling me at a particular hour. They're flirting. So they may be saying, oh, you're pretty, you're this, you're that, and the other. And so I take that as you're interested. And I've had an experience. I remember with one gentleman in particular where I was sure, we even had went out a couple times, really not specifically as a date, but it was kind of, it was just him and I. It was a later evening. It kind of just happened. And I remember after I think maybe after a month or so, I was like, I'm going to just say, hey, are you feeling anything more than just friends? And I said that. And he said no. And I was like, okay, honesty. And so it hurt. And one thing about me, I'm 100% transparent. It hurt because we're talking about rejection. We're talking about that feeling. And what happens is, it wasn't so much that it was this person. I didn't even know him that long. But what happens is, these people that we might meet along the way, if you're not healed, it will trigger something that you haven't handled. And so now I might be crying, but I'm not crying about, oh boy, this I've been talking to for a month. I'm crying about rejection that may have happened years ago, right? And so I'll end it with this. And so moving forward, it can be difficult because what do you have to do if you really want to be in a good, healthy relationship? You got to find yourself vulnerable again. And so that's honestly what led into that part of when I said I wrote a book, 365 Days of Loving You. I said, okay, let's work on this. Right? So that if someone is not interested, I don't take it to heart to the point that now I feel ugly or unwanted or whatever the thing is. I take it for what it is. It doesn't make me less. It doesn't make it. I just might not be for them. I'm not for everybody, and everybody ain't for me. Right. And so, again, I think all that being said, yes, that's what happened. It felt horrible. It was a wake up call. Something beautiful came out of it when I began to take a hard look at me. And now I'm ready to love.
Mm-hmm. Man, I think you made some great points, Brandon. I love your transparency about how you felt with rejection, because rejection, it doesn't feel good. Rejection can be very hurtful. But before I go on my spiel, I want to give you guys an opportunity to go ahead and jump in after Brandy's points. And I want to take the time 1 second to introduce Pastor Gregory Devine, who's just joined us. Please, sir, introduce yourselves, and then we go ahead and continue on with the conversation.
Yes, sir. I am Pastor Gregory Devine out of Durham, North Carolina. I pastor a church in Oxford, North Carolina. And I throw a host of events around the Triangle area. I have a podcast as well, the Sanctuary Podcast, as every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Envision Radio. I look forward to today's conversation.
Beautiful. And as always, great to have you, my brother. You know how I
Yes,
feel
sir.
about you. Got mad love for you, brother,
Love you, man.
and everybody else. But go ahead. I love what Brandy was saying, her transparency. Anybody can jump in there. The question, Gregory, was about, have you ever experienced romantic rejection? And if so, how did you handle it? Anybody can jump in there.
Ooh, mercy, Lord Jesus. I'll jump in. You know, being that we are just out of the pandemic now, you know, when the pandemic started, I found myself having a very difficult time because I'm a people-oriented person. And I was very accustomed to being around people all the time. I'm in corporate America during the day, and I pastor all the time. So I'm always around people. And so going into the pandemic, I was a single, right? Well, I started seeing somebody in the pandemic, but I had realized that inside of that relationship that I didn't need to be there. I was putting my all into it, right? You know, lovely woman. But what I was doing, in my estimation, was getting rejected. The harder I tried to be what I know to be as a man, the more I felt that was rejected, right? I found myself realizing that you cannot make somebody accept the love that they need, because people have to be in a position to receive what they need. And sometimes you could be doing all the right things to the wrong individual. And it's nothing against that person. It is just that we are all at different places at different times. And sometimes what you're ready for, what you desire, is not necessarily the position that that person is in. So your best efforts, or my best efforts in this regard, were rejected because that person was not in position to receive what I was offering. That is not a good feeling, because we are taught and conditioned to believe that if you are a man of valor, a man of God, you know, you're the gentleman. You open up the door. You get up when she come back to the table. You pull a child.
Come on.
That's the woman that's the man that she wants.
Yeah.
That's what somebody wants when they are seasoned, and when they have gotten in position to realize that, you know what, this is the kind of man I need. I don't want a boyfriend. I want a husband, right? It doesn't make me any less of a man or her any less of a woman. It just means that this was not the appointed time for you and I, right? But God will always get the glory out of anything. All things do work together, right? So there was still some good that came out of the relationship, because I was able to be a vessel that showed her that there is a different type of a man out here. But when they come along, you have to be ready for that kind of individual, because the thing that we do that hinders us, I'm gonna close here, is that we believe more in Christian songs than actual scripture, right? It's pretty to sing, you know, what God has for me is for me, right? But the reality is you can forfeit a blessing because you was out of position. And that's the part we don't talk about, is that how God, it's not that God did not send us things sometimes. Sometimes either we're out of position or we did not recognize the thing that we prayed for, because we were expecting this thing to look like something else. And you know, and everybody knows, if there's one thing I can do is talk. And if you want, if you say that you want a man that can express himself, be certain that you want that, because an emotionally intelligent man is desired until his emotions don't suit what you want.
That's
Great
so
point.
good. Y'all better
Yeah.
jump in. I
You
jump on
are
it.
speaking. I feel like this pastor is talking about my life. Oh my gosh, because I so want to come from that point of view of the woman who does reject a man. I mean, just like what you were saying in COVID, we seek for those connections because we are so isolated. I mean, I went from working in the office to working at home 24/7 as a single person, no kids, didn't have any, no relatives living with me in a whole house. And so it would have get lonely, like, oh God, who's here? Like, and so you do. And so I got engaged in 2020 to a particular individual. And at the time, I was not ready. I'll be the person to admit that. I was not ready. Within so many months, he was like, I know you're the woman for me. I've been praying. I've been seeking this. But I had to tell him, hey, I'm not ready. And in the midst of that, I lost my mother, and I was her only daughter. And so so now I'm dealing with the fact that, oh my gosh, I didn't get married before. I didn't get married before my mom passed. I wanted my mother to see that. But I was not ready.
Wow.
That's so good.
I was not ready. So so I have rejected someone, and they also experienced that hurt of not only rejection, but the fact of disappointment. So I had to go to therapy to deal with that, to say that, hey, I was not ready for marriage, something that I've been praying for, something that my mother wanted to see. I was her only daughter and the middle child. And man, I tell you, so now I am working on myself to get ready for that man of God, to be in that right frame. At that time, I was trying to survive coronavirus. I was trying to take care of my mother, enjoy the last few months that I had with her. And so my mind wasn't there. And he kept telling me, like, Andrea, I know you're sad about your mom. I know you want to take care of your mom, but you got to live too. You say you want a man of God, right? You say you want to get married. And I was like, you're right, but I'm not ready. I'm not ready to make that sacrifice. So,
Mercy.
And this is not what I'm talking about is not going to be all sugary and filled with hope. It almost sounds like discouragement, right?
That's real.
But sometimes in life, you have to go through that.
Yeah.
In order to appreciate something that's going to be good, because sometimes we don't.
Can I jump in and just say, I appreciate you, Drea, for saying, for coming to that epiphany, if you will, and being honest about it. There's so many people that have those feelings and still walk down the aisle and still get married. And now that you're annulling the marriage months later, or now you're in a marriage for years unhappy. And now here's the cheating. And now here's the whatever else kind of comes out of it. So that's a hard thing. People talk about the pain of feeling as though you're rejected, but we don't talk, as you guys both kind of said, about what happens when you're the one saying no. That's another thing. I want to hear from Jared.
Mercy, JB.
Listen, rejection is one of those things that are not easy. You know what I mean? And what I've noticed in my day-to-day activities and what I've seen over the years is that I'm glad it took me to get to where I am to understand why it didn't work the first time around. And I'm so glad, because I don't know if y'all notice or not, I'm actually an extroverted introvert. So what that means is I have to force myself to be extroverted and force myself to go out and go out into the world and talk to other people. It may seem like I'm easy, but that's just practice, y'all. That's just skill, y'all. That's skill on display. But my thing is this, like you talked about earlier, Andrea, you talked about the pandemic. Well, here's the thing. The pandemic was a beautiful thing for me. What broke other people, it actually woke me up, because I was able to go on the inside where I needed to be and explore what I already had inside of me. So my thing is this, I had to search inside myself to figure out exactly, you know what you have is special. You know what I mean? And you cannot just give that away to anybody.
Yeah.
And I had to make a deal with myself. I said, self, we're not selling for anything less than amazing, because that's what you are. Sometimes you have to talk to yourself like that. And anytime I had to keep telling myself, anytime somebody says, hey, you know, this is not going to work, they're going to reject me or whatever, it's only because they're looking from a limited vantage point. They don't have all the information. You see what I'm saying? If they had all the information, then they would know that this man is a good man. This man won't let you down. That's why I keep trying to tell Tamel, I'm so glad I don't look like what I've been through. You know what I mean? I'm able to navigate life in such a way that nothing bothers me. You see what I'm saying?
Great, sir.
So, a lot of times what women want, they want somebody who's ready-made and who's built. Well, sometimes men have to grow into who they are. Sometimes you have to learn and have wisdom along the way. And only experience is something that you can bring to the table.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There are also other intangibles that people don't ever think about when they're dating people. What about that person's family? I come from a very big, strong family. And that, my dear, is an asset. And I have to make sure that I have to protect that as well. So I have to keep thinking to myself, instead of them rejecting me, I had to switch that thing around to a different polarity. Baby, do you qualify for this? You know what I mean?
All right, come
Are
on
you
now.
qualified?
Not
You know what I mean?
Not everybody is qualified.
What do you have on your resume that proves that you can handle this mission? You see what I'm saying? Because I need somebody who's going to motivate me when I don't feel like it. And I'm a self-motivating type of person. So if I get to that place, I'm going to need you to be just as strong, because I'm going to do the same thing for you. You see what I'm saying? I'm going to reach down and pick you up when you can't go and carry you. Not just say, hey, get up. I'm going to pick you up and carry you. That is the type of man that I am. So I have to make sure whenever somebody says, hey, you know, I don't think this is going to work, you just did me a favor.
Come on.
Number one, you just told me that you don't value wisdom or knowledge because you don't have enough information to know what you're even dealing with.
Come on, sir.
You see what I'm saying? So that's the reason why when you have to look at rejection as a way of saying, hey, thank you for the time. You see what I'm saying? I've learned a lot from you, and I've learned a lot from this experience. And what it does, it helps me to gain wisdom and knowledge for the next mission at hand. So my thing is this: whenever somebody tells you no, you say next. You know what I mean? Because God definitely has something better for you along the way. So I'll wrap this up by saying that every one of you who are listening is someone special. You know what I mean? And it's going to take somebody who has discernment to see that. And when you find someone who has this discernment to find out what's inside of you, that's when you found something special. Love is something rare. You know what I mean? A lot of times we like to see it on TV and it's advertised as if it falls from the trees and falls from the skies like man and said, everybody get a boo, you get a boo, you get a boo, everybody get a boo. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, once you think about how rare real love is, when you get it, you will cherish it. You will honor it. You will respect it. And you will protect it. So that's the reason why you have to make sure that whenever you get with somebody, make sure you do the internal work. I know we like to go on dates. I know we like to be flashy. I know we like to put on posts. Yes, I have my boo now. You know what I mean? Don't hit me in my inbox anymore. I have a boo now. You know, that type of thing. We like to show out. But my thing is this: I'm going to invite every last one of you to make sure the next encounter that you with somebody, make sure you do the work. Ask the necessary questions. Ask them what their why is. Why is it that you're here? Why is it that you do what you do? And then what you do is when you find that, you'll find out a purpose that you guys can find out if you're going down the same path, which is way more important. Because if you can find your path together, that means you can work out life together. You can have somebody to go down the hard road with and make it a little easier. You see what I'm saying? So those are just some of the little tips that we're going to get into tonight. I'm not going to hog the mic, Tamel. We're going to turn this thing back over to you so we can get into the show.
But can we open the doors
Okay, and Pastor collect the place
for the church?
of seed needs to be sown.
Because didn't he preach?
Wait, let the male play his music. Listen, it's a whole organ happening.
Hey, listen, hey, those are my sound effects. Those are Pastor Gregory's sound effects. He always has that organ with him.
I love it.
But I love it. Yeah, it's definitely, I love it. It, definitely highlights, the comments that are made in some of the discussion. And so it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. What you said was beautiful. What everybody said, I think you guys dropped some bombs and some Jews. And so one thing I'll say about rejection, it does hurt, but I want you to look at it this way as well, that rejection is actually leading you into the eventual arms of the person that you're really supposed to be with. So I want you to look at rejection like that. It happens for a reason, even though it does hurt. And I will say I have been rejected. I wouldn't say a lot, but I have been rejected in romantic relationships as far as when I was trying to get to know different young ladies and things of that nature, and we just didn't match. But it's important to recognize that you don't match. And so that's why it's important to ask the correct questions, ask the right questions. And I think it's so important, and I'll make this point and we'll move on. I think that it's so important that people heal from past relationships, from past hurts, because when you're not healed, you bring that into the new relationship when you haven't been healed. And so what are you saying now? I know people saying, what are you saying? How do you get healed? It may take you going to see a therapist or going to see a counselor. It may take you going to fall up on your knees and praying to God and say, Lord, help me, Lord Jesus, to overcome all of my past anxieties, my past trauma. Lord, help me. You have to go to God in prayer and ask God for his help and his strength that he can help you. And that's just something that's spiritual. But I think that the practical thing is just know that, your purpose, know that you're if you're walking in God's will and doing his will, he's going to lead you and guide you to the right person to make your husband or wife. Or even if it doesn't work out, I think people, they downplay friendships. Sometimes it's not always for you to link up romantically with somebody, but to develop a friendship. Maybe that person is there to encourage you. Maybe that person is there just for a short season. And so I think that's a problem too. Sometimes people who come into my life, we think they're lifetime people, but they're only there for a temporary season, not to be with us for the rest of our lives. And so once I recognize that, our personalities don't match, spiritually we don't match, then we have a conversation and we let the relationship go. And sometimes you can remain friends and say, you know what, you're cool people, I really like you, even though there's no romantic connection, I still like to stay in contact with you. But I love what you guys are saying about that transparency. Rejection doesn't feel good, but know that when you're rejected, that God is definitely has a different plan, for your life. And there's always somebody that's going to be there and going to be better for you. I don't like to say that there are people that's better for you, but there's people that better match you. And that's what I'll say. But go ahead. I know we kind of broke down that question. You guys, like I said, I want the conversation to continue to flow. And I got a question in here, and I'll just take it here. Why do you think we talked about rejection, but why do you think that it's so hard? Why don't people handle rejection well? What's the problem? What's the issue? Do you believe? Because I don't handle rejection well myself, and I'm a man of God. I believe in the word of God. I think I'm cool. I think I'm a good guy. But how? Why is it so hard? Why do you think it's so hard?
I'm gonna tell you why. We like to personalize everything. You know what I mean? Our experience is our experience and nobody else's. Sometimes people won't tell you that the reason why they rejected you is because they felt like they weren't enough for you, and they won't be brave enough to tell you that. You know what I mean? And in the back of your mind, you're thinking they're rejecting me. No, they in certain situations, it's a situation where they don't know their worth. You know what I mean? They see your worth. They're thinking that, hey, how could I help this person? It seems like you got everything going on. I would just slow you down. I don't even know who you are. I got past traumas I hadn't healed from yet. I got triggers that made me unattractive from time to time when I get angry. You know what I mean? Those type of things. And sometimes we like to think that the rejection is something that we did and we take ownership of it because it's our experience.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why it hurts, because they didn't tell us, hey, you know, I wasn't enough. But in essence, we're taking that inside and we're thinking that we're the ones that's not enough.
I think that we're not conditioned to understand the other side of rejection. Rejection is not just a bad thing. Psychologically speaking, your brain needs to fear rejection sometimes. Because if you condition yourself to believe that you're going to be accepted everywhere, then you'll become arrogant, right? And you begin to think of yourself more highly than you ought to. So rejection is sometimes a useful thing because you need to feel that way sometimes so that you can realize, you know what? Every hurt that I feel is not for my demise. Sometimes you have to experience a hurt that heals you, right? But we think sometimes that when things fall apart, that's it. Sometimes your life had to fall apart, but it's really falling together. Because sometimes the rejection is you experiencing something where somebody may have rejected you how you are, but maybe you shouldn't be that way right now. Or maybe you shouldn't try to fit in with that crowd, with that group, or with that person. Because there are sometimes we try to put ourselves in environments that are not for us. So sometimes that rejection was for your good. Like rejection could be protection. And that's what we don't realize sometimes. You know, we see rejection as, oh, well, you know, they pushed me away. Well, you know what? It might be a good thing that they pushed you away, because look where they're at now. Look where that crowd is at now. Look where that group is at now. You know what I'm saying? It had Jesus not been rejected, there wouldn't be Calvary.
Come on.
There wouldn't be salvation.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have liberation. We wouldn't have the right to be free, right? So sometimes rejection frees us from a pain that would cripple us, right? Because had you not been rejected, then the route that you were going might have been some real pain down that road. So maybe this temporary emotion that you're feeling, that you think is the end all be all, ain't that big of a deal once you get past it, right?
Yes,
I mean, even in regard to romantic relationships and dating, sometimes we need to face some rejection so that you don't think that you are the bomb.com. You all right. You know, but don't, everybody don't want you.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And sometimes rejection, again, is meant to humble you.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us, even inside of the church, you know, and I'm talking about, I know some very arrogant pastors, you know, who feel like everybody wants you. Sharon wants you. Calm it down, because that arrogant attitude is coming off and it's presenting a attitude where we all seem like that now because we're with you or we are around you, right? So it's like sometimes, like, you know, like when God gave them the thorns, right? We think that those thorns are from the enemy. Another one, God allowed those thorns. That's why he's saying, I'm gonna remove it. That you won't be boastful, arrogant. Sometimes you need to be uncomfortable, right? Because when you're uncomfortable, you're more amped now to walk in the will of God because you feel like you need God.
Yes.
If you've never faced rejection, then you don't feel like you need God because you feel like my skill has gotten me here. My good looks have gotten me here. My being well spoken has gotten me here.
That's
so
good.
Now you start to be puffed up. You know, you know, I got the smooth voice like JB. You know, I can, you know, I can make anything sound good. A duck can pull a truck, baby. Hook it up. You know what I'm saying? Say anything that sound good because you're arrogant, and we feel like, you know, can't anybody tell me nothing. So sometimes all of us need to be humble, need to face rejection and embrace that rejection, that you can help somebody behind you realize, you know what? Rejection ain't the end.
I think that's so good. Drea, you were about to say something?
I
Go
was,
ahead,
because I
'cause
was
I don't
like,
want you to lose your
okay,
thought. Then
right,
I'll come
because
in.
I had wrote down something I had wanted to say, and Gregory touched upon it. And I was like, yes, we do need rejection so that we know some doors aren't from God. For
Hello.
me,
True.
I'll be thinking like, oh, this is the one for me. Oh my gosh, this is it. And it's not. It's
Nah.
not from God. It's
Yeah.
my flesh.
Come on now.
And it hurts so bad because I'm like, well, God, this is what I thought. This is what I wanted. I was lusting.
Mm.
This person looked the part.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So it just, so that rejection is like, oh my gosh, it shattered my expectations, my desire, my image, and basically my idol.
Wow.
So it hurted.
That's
And
so
so
good.
God told me, when Tamel told me this topic, I was like, oh God, this is the rejection. I've rejected and I've been
When the
rejected. I'm
rejector.
sorry, I've rejected and I have been rejected. So the Lord told me Revelations 3:8.
Mm.
And it basically says, I know your deeds. Behold, I have set before you an open door which no one can shut, because you have little power and have kept my word and have not denied my name. So I'm like, okay, God, what does that mean? And basically the Lord told me, he said, when I open the door, nobody can shut it. So when you got rejected, that wasn't the door I wanted open for you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to walk in the doors that I open so that you know it's from me, not yourself, not your lust, not your body, not the flesh, because that door is going to close. A man can close that door if it's not from God. That relationship, that job, that opportunity, it can close, it can shut down. But when it's from God, it's going to be open and it's going to flow just right.
So good. I want to hop in there too. Just really a couple of the things that even that Pastor Greg said, and then even you, Drea, confirmed some other things I was thinking about. And then I might go in a little bit of a different direction. But especially the part where you're talking about allow God to open the door. And then another reason that I think a lot of times we might be dealing with rejection, and this also is something that I moved into, and it helped me to look at the word rejection in a different way, where I didn't see it as such a horrible word, right? Because if you just think about, for instance, like if you're on a plane and you happen to be sitting in the wrong seat, right? And then someone says, no, you can't be here, get up and move, right? You got to go to your seat. So it's not that I don't have to walk away crying because I've been rejected from the plane, or rejected from that aisle or rejected from that row. No, I got to look at my ticket and see, where am I supposed to be, right? Because there is a seat for me. And so when I began to think about that, and whatever it is, I think about iPhone cases. I got a certain iPhone, and so I'm not gonna cry because my phone don't fit a certain case, right? I gotta get the case that fits this particular phone, this particular model. It's custom made, it's tailor made for me. And so when I started to look at it that way, I wasn't upset with the iPhone 13 cases. I didn't feel bad because I couldn't fit in it. Because I'm an iPhone 14, okay, and of course, okay, I know for some people that are joining, no, I'm not an actual iPhone. I understand that. But what I'm saying is that we're not going to fit everywhere. God has made us specifically for a certain mountain of influence, specifically for a certain people group, a certain people. I could say something and nobody connects to it. Pastor Gregory could say the same thing, and then this group is like, yes, that's the word, right? Because there's nations that are connected to my voice, to his voice, to your voice, and we got to be okay when it doesn't resonate here. Sometimes the brook is dry. Get up. Stop trying to drink from an empty lake or empty brook. Be able to move on. And then the last thing that I wanted to say about rejection too, that was as I grew in a place of self-love as well. And Pastor Greg kind of tapped on this with that acceptance that everybody don't want you. And that's okay, because I don't want everybody. How does it work for me not to want everybody, but it don't work for everybody not to want everybody? So what I started to realize was that, and beyond, here's the other thing. Now, this is real maturity. Moving on, realizing that that person may not want you, and they don't necessarily have to be a bad person because of it.
Right.
They don't necessarily have to have missed the mark because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they got it right because I wasn't the one for them.
Yes. There you go. Come on now. Come on.
That doesn't take anything from all of the amazing that God has made me, because
Mhm.
somebody doesn't get it. They may not get this, and that's okay. So I'm gonna move on, take my happy tail to my right plane seat, get my right phone case, and be all right. And that's all I got to say about that.
That's so good, Brandy. That is
Yeah,
so good. I
that
like
was
how you
that was
said
great.
this. Like, they're not a
Mhm.
bad person.
Yes.
If they reject me, they're not. It's just
Sometimes they are,
it's just
sometimes they
not
are.
for me.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
And let me say and jump in there with that, because some queens and some ladies, they really take that really hard. Let's say they may be interested in you, and ladies, like you said, look, uh, some of you guys have some real bad issues with being rejected by men, because they'll block you, they'll call you out of your name. These are things that I've experienced. They'll disrespect you and call you you're not a man of God because you rejected their romantic connection. And so that has happened to me. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah.
And this is when I was listening to you guys, right? I was thinking about this because sometimes we make bad decisions, make poor decisions. I heard Drea, she was saying that it was lust, and she made the wrong decision in choosing a mate. But sometimes God allow you to be with somebody that's toxic, that'll drain you, and you'll go through a lot of different unnecessary situations and changes for you to appreciate when the right person comes along. You will love them, you respect them, and you appreciate it because you know the other side of what a good relationship is. You know what toxic is, and I've experienced toxic, so I know what toxic is. And so let me give you an example. And so I've been in relationships where when there was a disagreement, there was always some type of a rebuttal of disrespect. And some women that call you out your name and cuss you out and things of that nature just because you don't agree with them, or there is an argument, and so you want to cuss me out and you want to disrespect me because that's that person's character, right? And so I've gotten used to in a while back of turning up. I'm ready to turn up. You disagree with me, I'm ready to turn up. Hey, you coming for me, I'm coming for you. But when the right person comes along, that will change.
Yes.
And this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to brag a little bit about my wife because we're totally different. Our personalities are different. And I am an ambivert, so I'm, outgoing, but sometimes I like to be alone. And she's more of an introvert. But there were times when we did have disagreements, and I was ready to turn up. Hey, look, what you say? No, I don't like that. I don't agree with that. But her demeanor was so sweet, and she was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna, call you later, or when you calm down, or when I'm ready to talk about it. And I'm like, no, I want to talk about it now. And she just like, I don't think it's a good time that we talk about it now. And then I begin to think like, why am I'm tripping? I'm tripping. Let me calm myself down and just chill and just wait until we're both ready to talk about it, right? She has the right demeanor for me. You know what I'm saying? There's just a way to handle conflict. And I think that's so important. A person being able to have good conflict resolution skills, because that's going to help. And so it made me appreciate, like, wait a minute, I got a real woman of God.
That is a skill.
Whose demeanor and whose attitude matches me. She balances me out. And when it's time, when she's kind of low key and I need to handle some things, she appreciates it. So we balance each other out. And so I'll say this, I don't expect my wife to think like me, but the important thing is that me and my wife, we align. And that's the key. We have to align with one another because we both are interdependent upon one another. But I just wanted to say that. And you guys can jump in there if you wanted to say something, or we go ahead and move on to the vulnerability part.
We can go on.
Let me say this before you move.
Go ahead, Pastor Greg. No, go ahead, Pastor Greg.
I was going to say, we put a lot on love language, right? without realizing that you could be speaking somebody's love language and still not actually showing them the love they need in this moment. Because love language does not address things like core values or things like emotional compatibility. And sometimes we miss the moment because we misinterpreted a mood, right? In this moment, I don't understand this person because I'm not present with this person, right? Now I might know that branded love language is
Words of affirmation. That is
words of affirmation,
love language.
right? But say you have come home and you have a tired mood on your face. Your whole demeanor is like, oh, babe, I'm exhausted. And, you're not saying a whole lot, but I can read you, right? Well, I should be able to read you, but I'm not. Because I'm not present. I'm here, but I'm not present, right? I'm trying to give you words of affirmation. That ain't what you need.
Wow.
You've been on your feet all day.
Yeah.
Let's say you a nurse or something.
Yeah.
You've been on your feet all day. You're tired. Your back is hurting. And I'm sitting here telling you, baby, you can do it.
Ooh, that's
You don't want to hear
good.
that. You, even though that's your love language, and I'm speaking it, I'm not making you feel loved in this moment because I'm not present in this moment.
Yes.
We can be so stuck on love language that we miss the language of love. Love requires you to be present in this moment, right? Love is a specific thing at a specific time for a specific purpose. And if I miss that time, I miss that thing, I miss that purpose, I ain't loving you in this moment, right? And you're not feeling my love because although it's words of affirmation that your love language, what you need actually is physical touch right now. I need to get that foot pan. You're at them feet. You hear me? Or that back. Baby, and JB last night says on my podcast, he said, sometime you should ask them, what can I do for you right now?
Yes.
Address their immediate concern, right? Because again, if your love is like a river, let her bathe in these waters. But the only way that she can do that is for you to be present, right? Right. Like sometime with God, right? My present faith has to be based on God's past performance, right? In this moment, I better make sure that I have built up some type of reservoir in the past to where my past performance can speak not just to her, but to me right now. And I can realize, wait a minute, in the past, you was a little more present and her response was different. You're trying to get the same response now, but you're not doing what you did yesterday. Right. Now add to this, what happens if we happen to be in a week or a season of discord that we think could never happen? Because Christians believe it's sunshine and raindrops. We believe, oh, if this is the one for me, we'll never argue. What? How
you don't have disagreement.
The more you love somebody, the greater the potential to argue because you love her so much. My thing is, sometimes we gotta start relying on the latest fad or the latest trend that sounds good and does have its place. Love language definitely has its place.
Yeah.
But there are so many other factors that factor in to truly loving somebody and showing somebody love in this moment. And love requires us to pay attention, right? I got to read what you're not saying. I got to hear what you're not saying. Read your body language. And then I need to listen yesterday to understand today. Women talk especially, right? When a woman going to have a challenging week, she already told you. You better remember. So when the week starts and she starts to come in here irritable, when she starts to be a little bit nagging like they can be sometimes, God bless them, I love them. But did you listen Friday when she told you next week gonna be tough for me? You should have been making preparations Sunday.
Yeah.
So when she come into Monday, you are already prepared. You know what I'm saying? You know what she likes, know what she loves. If she's an avid reader, go buy her a new book. So when she come home stressed, it might not be the Bible she want to read. It might be this love fantasy. It might be some Zane. I'm just saying. It might be
You
a
know
good
about
book.
Zane, Pastor? What you know about Zane?
I'm just saying. Listen. Forgive me, sweet naked baby Jesus. but you better pour her a glass of wine. See to miss for the married folk. The man married. You better go ahead and if she coming home, listen. Go ahead and have the champagne ready. Go ahead and have the fruit tray ready. Go ahead and make the bathtub hot, like she like it. You understand?
Oh yeah.
And if you marry, and one day I'm gonna get there. One day, bathe your woman and wash that day away.
Oh, you talking good? You talking good, sir?
And at the end of the night, can I go to the book?
Oh God.
Can I go to the book of R&B?
Oh, that's the book of R&B.
Chapter in vogue. She gonna read. Give him something that he can feel.
Oh, come on.
That he know that love is real. And the doors of the church are open. Will there be one?
Amen. Amen.
Yes, sir. Where's the organ at? Where the organ at, Gregory?
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I'm ready. I was talking. That might be a good Baptist shout right there.
That is. But I like how he said be intentional.
I'm good Baptist. Come on now.
Be intentional. That's what I heard. Be intentional.
Listen, it goes down.
Intentional for sure, and intentional.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll say this: it goes down in the Brown's house. Romance.
Hey,
down. Hey, I ain't ashamed of it. I'm married.
Look, what UPS say? What can Brown do for you?
Oh,
that's right.
He can do many things. All right, let me get off of that. Anybody want to jump in on what Gregory was saying? He said some great things.
That was good, Greg. That was good.
Thank you, brother.
I just want to say one thing about what Tamel was saying, and that was excellent what Gregory's saying about the love languages, but just knowing your person, basically being intentional about understanding who they are. But like Tamel said about the disrespect can help us to say no to people, and that may be rejection because they're disqualified.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're disrespecting me. I can't handle that.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we are disrespecting someone else, then we do need to be rejected. We do need to say, no, you need to go, because that's not right. And that's not healthy.
I will tell you this: handling disrespect is a skill. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah, brother.
Number one, you're a child of God, so you can only act a certain way. Now, they can do whatever it is they want to do, but you have to move a different way. You know what I mean? Yeah. When they address you in a disrespectful way, you ask them, hey, did you really mean that? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Did you really mean that? And then that's going to make them pause and say, hey, you know what? I really didn't mean that. And then tell them, I forgive you. Now let's talk about what's really on your mind, because it seemed like you were upset. And what you do at that moment, you're putting yourselves on the same side, and then put the problem against the other side of the table. And that's how you develop we language instead of I language or you language. And that is a skill that we are going to have to get good at in relationships, because sometimes we don't always remember that. You know what I mean? It's something that you have to practice on a daily basis. You know what I mean? Some people have to be groomed out of that. Think about it. Some families, that's how they talk to you. They disrespect each other. In their household, that is a term of endearment.
Wow.
But as far as you're concerned, you have to set your boundaries and say, oh no,
Right.
we didn't grow up like that in our house. We don't disrespect each other, because that's a form of unlovingness. And all we do is we love in this household. We don't disrespect each other because we love each other. And you have to set that boundary in place to handle disrespect. You know what I mean? Because you have to remember that person is also a child of God.
Right.
And how we handle them, God's going to look at us a certain way. You can't say you love God and you hate your brother. Ain't that what the book say?
Come on.
What it say? We have to make sure that we govern ourselves accordingly. You know what I mean? But you have to make sure you address it right then and there, and then you have to redirect it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's how it works.
I think I'm going to say this super quick. I think it kind of I agree with what you said, Jared. I'm also kind of leaning into what Greg said as well. Sometimes it would be nice to always be able to address it then and there. But to Greg's point, depending on that, you're knowing your person, and I just know myself. There are sometimes I just need a moment.
That's
I need a
I'm like, I can't do that.
Yeah. And then I can hear you. Because but I've been in relationships where they want me to hear them right then, and I can't hear you, and I'm trying to, and it's not that I'm really never been one to just like, I don't go off like that, but at the same time I can shut down, and so you're talking and I'm not hearing. So I think kind of, and leading into what Pastor Greg said of knowing that person, knowing when it's so, I mean, especially if we're in it together, I'm not going nowhere. Give me a moment. Let me breathe. I'm not saying, especially if you're married, I'm not saying leave the house and y'all don't know when you're coming back. I'm not saying that type of thing. But sometimes you do got to read the room. Yeah. And I also want to lean into something that Tamel said about his wife when he was sometimes, a little frustrated about a particular situation or what have you. But it was the way that she responded and the way that she answered that gave him he either had to calm down or match her energy. A lot of times we talk about matching energy. True. Sometimes no, don't match energy, right? And so, and the Bible says specifically in Proverbs that a soft word turns away wrath.
That's
right.
right.
That's the word.
Yes.
So I'm gonna be soft with it. Give me a moment, and so I'm hoping, and that's not just for women, for both parties. Sometimes just allow the moment to breathe, and then come back to it.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm actually working on a podcast for tomorrow.
Beautiful point.
And it deals with fighting fair. And I have an acronym that I'm working on right now. To give y'all a snippet, peek of this thing.
Let's go.
I have an acronym for handling and fighting fair. It's called STARS. When you're so mad you're seeing stars, it's short for security, teamwork, adoration, respect, and solution. You know what I mean? Basically,
I'm gonna write it down.
I'm trying to write it.
Teamwork, adoration, respect, and solution.
Come on now.
Now, the security part is where people lash out, and sometimes they don't always open up with you because they don't feel secure in the relationship. So you have to set the table to make sure that the atmosphere is correct so that person can open up to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you have teamwork. Okay. Yeah. Teamwork is where you guys work together and put yourselves on the same side of the table and the problem on the other side of the table. And you learn to work together and you develop a habit of solving problems that way. So whenever you do come across a problem, okay, what can we do to solve this? You have a talent. Hey, I saw that you handled this. What do you think about that? Or I saw that you had a talent, dear. What can you do to bring something to this table? So it's an element of teamwork. The next step is adoration. This is very, very important.
Nice.
You have to make sure that you adore the person that you're with because you're not going to want to hurt the person that you're with. You're going to want to tame the words that you say. You want to handle that person with care. That is the adoration part, because that is the part that's going to make sure that you handle that person in such a way that you don't harm them, which goes back and ties back into security. The next thing is respect. This is more for the men. Make sure that you respect that man in your relationship, because men feed off of respect, because it's something that's in them that wells up when they feel respected. You know what I mean? They say babies cry for it and grown men die for it, and that's recognition. You know what I mean? Men want to be recognized, and it activates the go gadget, go get it inside of a man to want to do it for his woman. And if he adores her, that's going to activate in something in him that's going to do something for him to make sure that he takes care of you. And the last portion is solution. Whenever you have a conflict, you always want to make sure that you end with a solution that is fair and equitable to both parties, leading in the correct direction that you both set for yourselves. So that's just a little snippet for tomorrow. I thought I'd throw that out there. Remember, whenever you're so mad, you're seeing stars. Remember, security, teamwork, adoration, respect, and solution.
I love it.
Hey, I love it. I love it, JV. I love it. And make sure you copyright that thing before you put that in the comments. Make sure you copyright it. They want it in the comments, but make sure you copyright it, man. That's good stuff, man. That's great stuff. I wanted to go ahead and move into the vulnerability portion. And so I'm gonna ask you ladies, I know you ladies have experiences. Have you ever been kind of maybe walking down the street and you looking good, whatever you got on, and some brother, he tries to kind of holler at you, and then you may not be interested, but when you reject him, he gets very defensive and start calling you out your name, cussing you. I didn't want you anyway, B and all this stuff. And you think you all that and all that stuff. That's a problem. That's a problem. And that's why we're going to go into this being vulnerable part of the discussion, because I think it's important for men to learn how to handle rejection. I think it's very important. Men don't handle rejection very well. I don't think anybody handles it very well, but men don't handle rejection very well. And I think it's so important for a man. Let's for a second, when that happens, because I'm trying to help the men out here a little bit. Why don't you take a few seconds? If that woman rejects you, take a few seconds and just count to 3. 1, 2, 3, and think before you talk. That's something practical that I think that will help you. And take a moment to breathe, because like you said, rejection hurts. The girl is fine, she's looking good, and that's an issue, that's a problem. And so I've had to many times jump in to save the woman, to say, hey man, chill out, man. You need to chill out, man, because hey, it's not that serious, man. It's all good. The next person that you talk to will probably be the one that will accept your romantic gesture, And so I think men have to really get a mentor. All right. Get a mentor, get a man, an older man, or somebody that you really respect, someone you can talk to, because I think there's some other underlying things concerning rejection that goes on in the person said, because this is true of women too, because when you reject it so much, when you reject it so many times, and it seems like everybody you try to talk to, not just romantically, but you rejected, you didn't get the job offer, you get rejected all the time. And so it hurts and it begins to build up. And so we begin to put up walls, right? And those same walls that men and women use to protect themselves are the same walls that will cause you to miss on a blessing when you put them up. So we got to make sure that we're healed and that the Lord works not only on our spiritual walk through prayer and get healing and counseling, but we need somebody that we can confide in and talk to, so we can share those feelings and be transparent. But let's get to the vulnerability. This is a question that will spark it, and anybody can jump in here. But the question is, why do you think it's so difficult for people to be vulnerable with their feelings in a romantic relationship?
It's kind of like what Jared was talking about when he mentioned stars having a secure setting. I know for me, there were times in a relationship where I didn't feel vulnerable because I wasn't vulnerable because I didn't feel secure. I didn't feel safe. So it made me just kind of like either shut down, just remain silent and not be able to voice how I felt, because I didn't feel like the person actually cared to hear what I had to say. So that put up a wall. And I didn't realize that a man needs a woman to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
They need us to have those moments to say, hey babe, I feel this way. I need you to cover me. Men, that's part of men. That's what I've been hearing, is that they like to cover, they like to protect. And because I was like this, it was like I was protecting myself. The man couldn't do that for me, but I didn't feel safe enough to do that. So I think in a relationship, you need that. You need to be able to, as a woman, I need to be able to know that this man got my back in order for me to open up, and that he actually cares what I have to say for me to be vulnerable.
I want to hop in then as I guess speaking to, let me start kind of where Tamel was talking about, and then I'm in 100% agreement with you, Drea, and even Jared, that first S, security, is so huge. The moment I feel secure, then I can open up. Then there are more things that I feel like I can say completely, because now I don't feel like you're gonna leave me. Or I don't feel like now I'm going to be judged to this other level because I shared too much. Like, is this a safe place or not? Right. So that's a whole thing to talk about. Jocelyn Dean just said fear. Yes, a lot of this inability to be vulnerable stems out of fear. That's a huge part of it. But I do want to just kind of hop back to what Tamel, you were talking about, being women on the street beyond the relationship, right? And you have men that approach you that say different things here and there. And unfortunately, not all men, but there are some men that I've encountered, let me put it like that, where they don't always understand that no means no, right? So for some men, they think no means try harder, right? And so what happens is, as women, especially if you're on the street walking alone, potentially as a single woman, getting into your house or pumping your gas late at night, it's not that you're trying to just be rude. But if I say something in a sweet voice, that may say that I want you to enter or come close to me. And right now, I don't feel safe. Back to security, whether I'm in a relationship or outside of relationship. So sometimes it's not a personal jab at a man because I don't like him or think he's handsome. I just might need to pump my gas, and that's it, because I need to get home because I don't have a man, that's covering me in that way. And so I got to take care of myself. And so we build these walls, and it's not always intentional. But what I've learned as I've grown up and understand that God covers me. Come on in here. The blood covers me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesus. So so that means I don't have to be rude, even though I'm saying no. And even though they're no, they might think that I mean try harder, then I can still say no with grace and with respect. And I found that when I've done that, I'm not getting you be, you this, you that. It's like, all right, Miss Lady, or whatever they say, kind of like that. Or I hate to say it, I know you're not supposed to lie, but sometimes I will say, no, I have a man, even, because I do know a man. Come on in here. So whatever I got to do to ease the situation and not cause this man more rejection or more issues, I try to be mindful of that. Just as a woman, as a Black woman, especially dealing with Black men, I try to be mindful of that. And then just kind of leaning into the other aspect that Drea leaned in on when we're talking about security and that vulnerability in those moments. If I feel secure, then I'm going to be, it's more likely that I'm going to be vulnerable, that I'm going to be soft. And I am very, what do you call it? I communicate, so I'm going to tell you, yes, no, I'm scared. No, I'm this. And interestingly enough, some men just still aren't ready for that. Then they feel like it's too much responsibility, for them. Now they feel the weight, and they, they already do feel like they're dealing with a lot from the world. And now here I am looking at them like I need. And so it's a real thin line, depending on the individual that you're dealing with and their level of healing before you can move forward. And then your last thing is, then the prayer is, God, give me grace for this. If this is what God is, if God is in this, grace me for this, and then move through it that way.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
Now, when you think about relationally, right?
Yeah.
if Tamel, I think you asked also, why is it so difficult inside of relationships?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
from a man's perspective, this is gonna be a little controversial. I think that men have a problem with vulnerability because we don't have a lot of experience following a woman. Like we're taught to lead, right?
Mhm.
But this is a situation where a man has to be man enough to follow his woman's lead in regard to vulnerability, because we are so used to being Superman that we don't know how to exist as Clark Kent, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
we,
sir.
we don't sometimes realize that a woman will always be enamored by our strength, but she will also be, she will adore our vulnerability
Love it.
because we're trusting her enough with our weakness.
Love that.
And like when we learn how to take off the cape and give her vulnerability,
Come on.
we allow her the opportunity to speak to the king in us. And it's that type of intimacy that will like whisper to your weakness, and it
Mm.
gives him an opportunity to evolve in the strength. Because as men, sometimes we rob our lady of the chance to be in our lives who God placed them there to be, because we are afraid to enter a vulnerable space that we
Mhm.
have no control over and no experience in. And it's like we sometimes have to be strong enough to trust our lady to lead us into a vulnerable emotion that she honestly has more experience in. And that requires us as men to be secure in who we are. Because I always say that, ladies, a man who won't cry will make you cry. And it's like,
Come
I
on,
mean,
sir.
really, and it's like even inside of worship in church, that's what cripples some men inside of the sanctuary, is that you are so afraid of what this looks like. You are so afraid that you're going to look less than a man, less than manly. And you're so worried about that that you can't go
Mm-hmm.
deep into worship. You can't really enter a new level with God because you don't understand pure
Mm.
worship, right?
Mm.
You don't know how to lay down that vulnerability, strip off those layers of insecurity, and even admit that you have some insecurity, right? We have to, as men, learn how to trust our woman enough to believe that she has enough virtue to cover our insecurity, right? Like you cannot pray to God for a Proverb 31 woman, right? And then not be prepared to be a Proverbs 20 and 6 man.
Okay.
Come on.
That says that many men proclaim his own goodness, but who can find a faithful man, right?
Yeah. Yes,
And
sir.
it's about being faithful, being a good steward, I should say, of your life, right? Being faithful over your emotions, faithful over your emotional intelligence, faithful over your career, faithful over your money, over all of these things,
Hmm.
but also be humble enough to acknowledge and to know this is an area it's difficult for me. I've never had to be vulnerable. I don't know what it's like to be vulnerable. And see, as men, we are afraid sometimes to enter the experience of something that we have never faced before, because we don't know what it's like to not have control over what we're dealing with. And vulnerability requires you to let go of control and to trust that process. And then in regard to a relationship, you got to trust the woman that God placed in your life, and realize this truly is an opportunity for you to follow her lead, especially in the beginning, because she's been being vulnerable all her life. You
Yeah.
just started, and you're having to undo 30 or 40 years of being this hard rock of Gibraltar, that you don't realize that you are crippling your relationship. You're robbing her of a chance to be close to you, and she's feeling rejected because you're not allowing her into this area of your life. And sometimes we don't realize that we're pushing our women away
Right.
by not allowing her to fulfill her divine obligation in our life. When the Lord took the rib out of Adam, says he clothed that place with flesh. That means that a woman's job sometimes is to cover the part of us that is vulnerable. Let her do that. This is why protection goes both ways. We protect her physically from harm and danger. She protects us emotionally. And sometimes her job is to protect us from us. As men, we face a whole lot of anxiety that we don't talk about, don't want to deal with, don't want to face. And it's really neurotic anxiety that we face because we are so afraid of what we have built falling apart that unless I always appear strong, that's the only way I can feel like secure in what I've built. Okay, I feel good about it. That is why a man does not like to hear anything negative about himself. It makes him feel less than a man. When we fail at something, a lot of us run away from that failure because we don't know how to exist in it and to be vulnerable in it and to face what I didn't do right. Because when we were little boys, every time we needed to cry, we weren't given the opportunity to cry. Suck it up, be tough. So we learned that if you cry, you're less than a man, right? Not realizing that we are pushing the woman in our life currently away from us because she needs to see those tears, because she needs to know that when she's going through, I can go through with her. Right. I can enter the experience with her and not leave her alone in this. But when we leave her on the outside of what we're dealing, what we're going through, she feels unloved. Because in her head, we're not trusting her. And we want her to trust us. But we're not trusting, again, that she has enough virtue to cover our insecurity. If you prayed for this woman, trust God that she's got what it takes to help you get through whatever you're going through. And when you get to the other side of through, it's you two against the world, because she'll support you in all that you do.
Yeah, I just want to interject real quick before everybody else jumps in, but I just want to piggyback on a point that you made, Gregory, about men. I think it's tough for men to be very vulnerable because we're taught from a young age not to cry. And for example, I remember riding my bike, maybe 5 or 6 years old, trying to learn how to ride a bike, and I fell off the bike. And I, wanted to start to cry. Oh, I'm hurt. And then, you got my brothers and other, people that's older. Get up, man. Don't you cry. Get up. Get up. You're not hurt. You're not hurt. I think they were trying to teach us as men not to, be soft like the young ladies, but to be strong. But what it really did is it created us to not be able to express ourselves, to hold all of that in. And that's what causes the anxiety, is when you're holding all of that pain and that anxiety in. And I think it's important too for women, if you're in a relationship, for women to create an atmosphere of vulnerability for a man to be vulnerable, because it happens a lot when a man does express himself to some women, not all, but to some women. They're very condescending. They would say stuff like, maybe a real man wouldn't feel that way, or I don't think you should feel that way. But the man he's expressing himself, he's letting you know how he's feel, but you're rejecting him. And once that rejection happens, when you don't respect that man's feelings and when he's vulnerable, you probably never get that vulnerability out of that man again. And so I think that's important. But go ahead, anybody can jump in there.
You know what, Tamel, I wanted to talk to you about the men being rejected by women part when they talk to them on the streets. We as men have gotten away from being the natural balladeers that we are. You know what I mean? To make sure that our presence is felt when we approach a woman. You know what I mean? When you approach a woman, there's one thing that you should do above all else is clear the time. You know what I mean? Then you use your vocabulary to let her know you're not dealing with the average man. Say, for instance, you're walking down the street and you see a young lady that you like. You ask her for the time, ma'am, if you don't mind, I'd like to query you and parlay with you about your availability of your romantic availability. You know what I'm saying? she'll already know she dealing with something different at that point.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Number one, you cleared the time. Number two, you stated your intentions up front. I want to know if you're available. And if so, may I have your number so we can converse later on. You know what I mean? She's going to think one or two things. She's going to be like, who is this man? And where did he come from? You know what I mean? Even if she says no, listen, even if she says no, be a gentleman and say, you know what? Thank you for your time today. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Jump in with that though? That's so good. But I want to say too, also being mindful, like you said, the time. What time is it? Right. Literally. Right. If it's late at night, this might not be the time to approach.
Correct.
You want to make sure there's lots of people around so that she doesn't feel like I gotta watch all what, you know what I mean? Like
Correct.
Those are some other things that could at least open up an opportunity for you to get to the part where you can say query.
Right.
and then we can delve a little bit deeper. I wanted to throw this out here too, and I'm sorry if I cut you off early, Jared. Maybe you can even hit on this because there was a comment that popped up when you all were talking about men and vulnerability, and I would love for one of the men to address it because one of the men, somebody said, but this is what got Samson in trouble.
That's Rogers. Right? I was about to say something about that, Brandy, too.
But I would love, they said, he was vulnerable.
What was the question?
Yeah, he was asking Roger, and I'm going to try to find it. He was just saying, when he was vulnerable, something negative happened. Let me find it.
Yeah, he got his hair cut.
Yeah, right. It's like being vulnerable to the wrong woman got him in trouble. And I was going to speak to that because he even said another point. Rogers did talk about when you're vulnerable and you open up, some of the stuff that you say can be used against you. And I have been that person where I've been vulnerable to the wrong man, and he used it against me.
Yeah, that was it.
Oh yeah, he was saying, you see what happened when men were vulnerable to women. You know what? Here's the thing. I actually don't blame Delilah for doing what she did. I actually blame Samson's brothers for not setting the atmosphere for him to confide in people who were on the same team as him. You see what I'm saying? Because if he was able to talk to his brothers like I talk to Greg, like I talk to Tamel from time to time, we already know that this is a safe place for us to say what we need to say. Then we don't put ourselves in positions like Samson to get his secrets revealed. You know what I mean? Now, here's the thing about that. Women have a certain, proclivity to be able to set the table, to get things out of men from time to time. You know what I mean? Lay your head on my lap and tell me your secrets. You see what I'm saying? That type of thing. So in that moment of vulnerability, Samson needs to be able to discern, hey, what's going on here? You know what I mean? He basically relied on his strength instead of his intellect. And that particular moment in time was his downfall. But like I said earlier, it's actually Samson's people, his whole closest friends who actually did him in because it was not a place that was safe for him to express himself.
And let me add to that. I 100% agree with my brother JB on that. Now go to the other side of that coin here's Samson's accountability. Samson had an obligation and a responsibility to the Philistine people that he almost did not live up to as a result of his poor decision. Right. And you cannot understand who Samson is and was simply based upon Samson and Delilah. You better go read the whole story of Samson. You better read about Samson had a whole wife. You better read that. That stuff came before that. So Samson had a problem that a lot of men have. We don't talk about the problem that Samson had. Now, there's a thing called illustration when we preach, and then there's the illumination. There's things that we illuminate that come from our spiritual imagination. Let's keep it all the way 100. You get a man that comfortable, that ain't your husband. This ain't your wife. Oh, it's something going on other than conversation. Okay. Now, I said it, and I'm gonna say this is my view. my view. But I believe that to be true because you made this mistake multiple times with the same woman. You saw she had ulterior motives. The Bible talks about how she lulled him to sleep on her lap. I preached a sermon called "Get Your Head Out Delilah's Lap." Right? There's some places that you ain't got no business laying your head. Right? When you know what you're supposed to be doing, you know where you're supposed to be at. You know this is already going wrong, and you stay in the relationship anyway, right? You know what God has spoken to you that you're not supposed to speak to somebody else, right? Now, it ain't even really simply about Samson's hair. That's just so we can see the illustration.
Right.
With us, it's about losing who we are. Sometimes we get with people and lose our whole identity. Right? Yes. Because we're so wrapped up and caught up in love, and we want to be loved. We want companionship, but settle for company. Right? And some of us are so used to somebody being in our vicinity that we can't take not being in a relationship. So you get out the relationship, now you single. Soon as somebody else come aboard, boom, back on the relationship because you can't be by yourself. So really, lust look like love till it's time to make a sacrifice, right? I think Samson thought that Delilah loved him, right? Because his nose was open. He was vulnerable. He open. I mean, this woman must have really done something to him to make him go against God, man. Wow. What's she doing? I don't want that.
Same thing Eve did.
Right. Because if she had that kind of a hold on you,
make them sin against
wow. Her talk game must have been good. Her other game must have been good, right? But in all fairness, I actually believe that Delilah did have a love for Samson. And I'm going to tell you why I believe that. We cannot mismanage her moment, because if we mismanage her moment, I'm going to have to mismanage Peter's moment with Jesus. I'm going to have to mismanage, when they came to the garden, Peter chopped off his ear. Prior to that, Peter denied him. Judas betrayed him. Look at the words of Jesus when Judas gets ready to betray him. Jesus said, "Go ahead and do what you have to do, dear friend." We think that your friend never betray you. Yeah, they can. They're human beings. Yeah. They're human. And sometimes your eye cannot just lust for people, lust for stuff, lust for money, things. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, that's what Delilah's issue was, is that the money they presented her became bigger than the love she said she had for this man. Wow. The thing about it, now, she got emotional later on about what she had done. So she did care. She cared. But her lust for things and money was bigger than her love for Samson, right? So this speaks to us as people again. You better make sure that this love thing is a two-way street. And it's not you doing all the loving. Love is patient, kind, understanding, doesn't keep racking of right or wrong. It ain't puffed up. If the love is not looking like that, that's why I say love is different things at different times, right? And if the love never resembles that, you better run. Y'all know what I always say, and I'm gonna end right here and say this. I would tell you, fellowship, friendship, relationship, courtship. If I ain't the right one, abandon ship.
Okay.
Because you're always on one of those ships. And before you go to the next one, make a wise choice. And to JB's point, consult the counsel around you.
Yes.
You got people who telling you It ain't a bad decision that I've ever made. That my inner circle ain't warned me about, but I made it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I just want to add to that
Sure.
when he was talking about the lust. Us as women, especially Black women, when men approach us off the street, we can feel that they're lusting after us.
Yes.
And that's why we reject them too. We be like, no, this man don't love me. He said, hey, what's up, sexy? And then when I'm like, okay, thank you, but no thank you for the compliment. You have lust. You don't love me. You're approaching me because you see something that you're lusting after, or you're prideful and you just think you have to approach me. And I literally had this happen to me this week. I was going to someone's house and the man, he was like, hey, sexy. Hey. To the point that he chased me down. And I had to turn around and be like, okay, I don't want a situation to happen to me.
Right.
He's not going to attack me because my back is turned. So I'm going to face him. And I'm looking like, what? And he said, hey, put my number in your phone. And so to diffuse the situation, I put the number, I didn't put it in right. And he was like, I want the message right now. So I showed it to him, but the message didn't even go through. He was so aggressive.
That's why he wanted the message right then and there.
Right. He wanted to make sure.
We already know them tricks.
And it ended up popping up later on my phone, like message did not go through. And I was so happy. But anyway, but he was so aggressive. And I was like, this not love. And that's even in relationships. Sometimes men could be very aggressive and be like, hey, I love you. But you can feel that. Like the pastor was saying, love is patient. Love is kind. Love is gentle.
Hey.
Ain't nothing about that was gentle.
It sure wasn't.
Yeah. And this has been a wonderful discussion. I just want to say quickly, like I think JB was saying as you were stating your experience, Drea, that we have to approach you respectfully. But let me say this. Let me kind of play a little bit devil's advocate really quick. But ladies, you guys, men are physical creatures. You look good. Your hair is laid and you're looking good and you got nice shapes and nice bodies. Men are attracted to that. They're going to want to talk to you. They're going to want to talk to you.
But you can talk.
And I told the man,
it's got to
be
done respectfully. That's my thing.
Yeah.
You got to do it respectfully because I ain't coming to you crazy. I got a wife now, but I ain't coming to you crazy. I'm very respectful.
Tell the men of God like beauty too.
We do respect.
Amen.
Here's just like, just a little tip, sometimes, especially for men, it's like, how do I approach her then? Then what is the best way to do that? So you have to be observant. It's always being observant. Does she need the door open for her as she's walking into a place? Get there before her, open the door. Like you're being observant, but not like stalkerish, or if you see, something, she's purchasing something, you know what? I got her, maybe she's standing behind you in the line. Pay for her stuff. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying you have to do something. Right.
I like
you don't necessarily have to use your money because I know men get real sensitive about that too, But, the thing is just be observant. And if that opportunity is not there, then it may not be for you to take it. It's not for you to be like, chasing her down to the car because more than likely she's going to be afraid.
And we're going to say no.
Yeah, and she's probably going to say no. But it's just being observant. And if you're in a particular area, a lot of times, and I don't, hopefully I don't get no woman hurt, but a lot of times we're traveling the same areas. You see this is where she goes to go grocery shop. Go be at the grocery store. There's certain ways that you can approach it where it doesn't always feel so aggressive, or just saying hello. It's a beautiful day. Acknowledge the weather, acknowledge her car, acknowledge her dress in a respectful way, so because we do get dressed sometimes. We do want y'all to be looking, but
we appreciate that. We appreciate those tips. I think men appreciate. We appreciate that, Brandy and Drea. We definitely appreciate that. It's something for men to think about too when they're trying to approach women. That makes a lot of sense. I wanted to right now, the hour and 30 minutes is gone. Really, it's come fast. It's been a great, wonderful conversation. It's been outstanding. But I want to give you guys a chance, as always, before we end it, to give a tip, short tip on how men and women could be more vulnerable, how we can, we talked about it, how to handle rejection. We talked about a lot of it, but give us your last thoughts really quick, and also how people can get in touch with you. And we'll go ahead and end it after that. But yeah, go ahead. We'll start from the bottom, begin to the top. Go ahead, Brandy, and then we'll go all the way up to JB.
Sure. Absolutely. I just want to start by just saying that I've had an amazing time. Everyone on the panel, you guys are simply amazing, and I'm just very honored to be here. So thank you again. My name is Brandy Iberia. You can find me on social media, all platforms under Brandy Iberia. I think I'll leave kind of with this. The first thing that kind of came to mind was that your last experience doesn't have to be your next experience. So just because you had an experience that maybe didn't go, Rogers, that maybe you had an experience that maybe didn't go well, or experience where you did feel rejected or hurt or what have you, when you move into that next relationship or the next opportunity, as best you can, but that goes through processing. Sometimes you got to take time, and even if it's not a lot of times people think you have to heal after these long relationships. Sometimes I got to heal after I've been ghosted and I only known the person for a couple weeks, because now I'm like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Take a moment. Don't jump into the next thing. Get through what you need to get through, so that when you meet the next person, you can still let those guards down and have an opportunity for vulnerability. I think the last thing I'll say is rejection isn't always a bad thing. I think we kind of said that throughout. Sometimes it just means that that's not the seat for you. That's not the position for you. That's not the relationship for you. And if somebody decides that they don't want to be with you, it's okay. It was Bishop T.D. Jakes that said, if someone can walk away from you, let them walk. Your destiny is not tied to anything or anyone that left, right? And so that is your opportunity to say, okay, God, what can I learn from this? Everyone that comes into your life, every experience is an opportunity to learn, or everyone that comes into your life is a teacher. What am I supposed to learn from this? And so as you move forward, be okay with being vulnerable. We are Christians, and that means that we model ourselves like Christ. There are so many opportunities when Jesus could have stood up and said, no, wait a minute, I'm God up in here. What is you doing?
Right.
But he walked in humility. He was humble all the way to the cross. Even when he could have come down, he said, no, I'm going to be vulnerable even in this moment, because of the love that I have that's so much bigger than this one moment. So consider that. Is letting go of your vulnerability worth this one moment? All right. I love you guys. It's been a blessing to be here today.
Great to have you. Wonderful. Wonderful.
So thank you so much for having me, Tamel. I value your friendship, I value your show, and I enjoyed sharing the panel with everyone. JB, you know what it is, man. Always good to see you too, homeboy. You can find me on Facebook, Gregory Devine, across all social media platforms. I want to say this is my closing statement. Man or woman, don't disqualify yourself from being loved simply because you still have some triggers that remind you of past trauma.
Wow.
Nice.
So often we say that we don't deserve love because we feel like we are broken simply because we still have some triggers. I'm here to tell you, broken crayon still color. And at the end of the day, you can still have triggers and still be healed. Never let anybody tell you that to have a trigger means you're not healed. Speaking from a psychological perspective, you go to therapy to handle your triggers. That when you become triggered, you don't stay in that place, right? Like your trigger is attached to past trauma. Therefore, that trauma will always be a part of your life. It's a part of your story, part of your testimony. It does not disqualify you from somebody one day loving you so good that your heart forgets it was ever broken. God does have plans to prosper you and give you hope in the future, but you have to stop disqualifying yourself because you're saying, I don't deserve to be loved, or nobody will ever be able to handle me. First of all, you're not to be handled. You ought to be appreciated. You ought to be valued. You ought to be honored and adored. All of us. And that is in your future. But you have to sometimes remind yourself of not just who you are, but whose you are. And if God made you that promise, Jeremiah 29:11, he know the plans he has for you. Your job is to stay in the will of God, that everything he has for you will line up because you're in line with the will of God and you walking into your destiny, right? And know that sometimes you will face danger, you will face enemies along the way. But the Bible says, I prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies. And the word of the day is before, which can be an adverb of time or preposition of location. If it's an adverb of time, then God may have already set things up prior to your arrival. If it's about location, God might wait till you get there. And right before your very eyes, your table of blessing exists right there. But your responsibility in all of it is to stay in the will of God, trust the process, and understand every miracle in the Bible required you to participate in the miracle. So put some feet to your faith and trust God.
Beautiful.
That is
Beautiful.
wonderful. That's wonderful. Uh, I'm Andrea Enoch, and I'm just so delighted to be on this panel with Tamel, Jared, Gregory, and Brandy. Just wonderful. I look forward to talking with you all again. I've just taken in so much. I was here to pour out, and you guys have yet poured back into me. And so with there's just only two things I want to leave with you all. Just two. It's just that with rejection, just remember, if it's a closed door, it's not meant. God said he will set before you an open door. So with relationships, with jobs, God said he will make the way for you, that you will prosper. So if it's a closed door, it's not the right door for you, and that's okay. And then the second thing is that to be vulnerable, you want to make sure you choose the people that you can be vulnerable with. Not everybody is a safe person. Know who your safe people are. That's with family, friends, and even relationship. That matters because you could be vulnerable, like the one guy said he was vulnerable to Delilah, and it was his enemy who set him up to be killed. So sometimes in relationships, we'd be vulnerable to people who are designed to kill us.
Wow.
But you have to have the wisdom to know that this person may not be for me, but God has the person that I can be vulnerable. I can be safe to be who I am and to walk into the purpose. So those are the only two things I'm going to leave to you. Is when you think about rejection, closed door, is that God sets before you an open door, and that safe people, being vulnerable with the right people matter, because a safe person will cover you and pour into you and protect you.
Yes.
They will cover your weakness. And I love what Tamel was saying. He has a wife that didn't disrespect him in his weak moments.
Yeah.
Yet edified him to be strong, to be like, okay. In his meekness, he was strong. He was like, wow. And in her meekness, he became strong.
So true.
And
So
that's
true.
a safe person.
Yes.
So I pray that for us single people, that if God allows us to be married, that we do meet safe people that we can marry who will cover us and protect us.
So good.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Beautiful stuff.
I guess I'll land this plane.
You're in the right seat.
Smell, as always. Thank you, Randy. Smell, as always, it has been a pleasure to be on the panel with you, Greg, Drea, and Brandy, as always. I think a lot of times we always think that everybody has the answers to everything. And what I've known over the last 20 to 30 years of being a manager and training people, there's always two ways that you can fix something. You have to determine whether an issue is a skill issue or a will issue. I have a personal belief that everybody wants to love. So it's really not a will issue. Most of the time, it's a skill issue.
Wow.
And if we can accommodate people and teach people how to be skillful at loving and skillful at making sure that our relationships are secure and a safe place for us to express ourselves, then we can get better at having better relationships. You know what I mean? I'm going to challenge everybody each and every day to find somebody close to you and tell them thank you for whatever it is they done. Let them know that you appreciate them. Get in the habit of telling people why you appreciate them in their life. It could be something as little, hey, I appreciate you always having a kind word, to me whenever I need it. And what that does, it plants a seed in that person to always want to say a kind word to you whenever they see you. And what's going to happen is they're going to get in the habit of saying a kind word to someone else. And see, that's how joy starts at home and spreads abroad. You see what I'm saying? So what we need to do is we need to learn how to get skillful at loving one person at a time. So when we do meet the person that we are supposed to be with, that comes natural to us because this is something that's not foreign to us. And we're able to pour out the love in doses when it's needed. Yes. You know what I mean? We're able to apply the ointment of love when it's needed in that particular moment of time. You see what I'm saying? When that person is at a low, you'll know exactly the right thing to say because you've been doing it the whole time.
Thank you, Lord.
And what it does, it creates an atmosphere for security for that person to open up and be vulnerable with you so that you guys can share a deeper level of intimacy, which is what most people crave. So I'll leave you all with this. Start with the first S in stars. Learn to make sure that each and every one of your close friendships, partnerships, whatever it is you're close to, make sure that you start teaching those people every single day how to love. You know what I mean? Tell them you appreciate them every single day. And then what'll happen is they'll start learning how to do that. And it becomes cool to love once again. So I'll leave y'all with that. If you guys want to catch me, you can find me over here at Lost in Translation Podcast on YouTube. You can also find me here on Facebook at Single Save with No Kids. You know what I mean? And other places. And also on Instagram under Lost in Translation Podcast. Tamel, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this panel. And I also want to thank the people in the chat as well for showing up. Without you guys, this would not be possible.
That's right.
And I wanted to personally thank each and every one of you that's here now and those who will be listening on the replay. Thank you so much, Tamel.
Absolutely beautiful. Everybody made some wonderful, beautiful points. Man, I love you guys. You're very highly respected in my mind and my heart. And I know greater things are coming for all of you. And so go out and support their ministries. Go out and support them. Go ahead and send them friend requests. I'm sure they'll be open to friend requests and just connect with these individuals. I'm sure they can be a blessing to you. They can help you in some kind of way. And I'll just leave you with this. Don't wait for anybody to call you great. Don't wait for anybody to recognize that you are great. Just know that you are great. Walk in it with humility. Let your attitude show it. Go and be great. You are great because God made you great. That's why when you see me, I walk with my head up. I carry myself with confidence because I know that Jesus is with me. His spirit is dwelling inside of me, and greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. And I walk with a swag because I know that I got the greater one inside of me. And I'll leave with this scripture. Know that you can do all things through Jesus Christ who strengthens you, according to Philippians 4:13. Make sure that you are spiritually compatible with the person that you decide to be with. Those are my 3 S's. Make sure that you are socially compatible with someone that you're interested in, and make sure that you're sexually compatible with somebody that you're interested in. I'll say sexually compatible. I didn't say go and do the act. I just said talk about it. Make sure that you talk about that. So those are my 3 S's. Spiritual, social, and sexual compatibility is so important. But all right, that's it. That's the end. I want to leave this with you really quick, and we're going on to end the broadcast. But I wanted to show you this here. Go and support these individuals' ministries, and I'd like for you to go and check out my book. It is called How to Get Over a Breakup. That is the book cover. It's How to Get Over a Breakup. It's a guide to healing and restoration. I'm sure that it'll be a good read for you. And so I'll end it with that.
Wonderful.
And is everybody good?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Thank
All right.
you.
Great. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Miss Drea Moore, for being a part of this broadcast. I appreciate you. Thank you, JB. Thank you, Gregory, and thank you, Brandy. All right, you guys. Until the next time, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, family and friends. We appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support. We appreciate you. And I love you with the love of the Lord Jesus. All right, guys. Y'all be blessed. One love.
Congratulations.
Good
Bye.
night.
Thank you, everybody.